Hey everyone, Lexi here. This is another installment of my real life series where I bring to you something that's going on in my life right now that I am struggling a bit with or moving through, to show you that even us spiritual teachers, leaders, healers are still having the same experience as everyone else. We're not above it all. We don't have it all figured out, though we do have some tools, and I would like to share those with everybody else, all of you guys watching, so you might find some more ease in your life. So what I want to talk about today is surrender. There was a really significant point of surrender in my life about 5 years ago when I had irritable bowel disease for 15 years, and I got to the point where I just didn't want to do it anymore. I was ready to give up. I was ready to give up trying to fix it. I was ready to give up struggling with it. I was ready to even just let myself die if that was what was meant to be. I just didn't want to resist it anymore. I didn't want to struggle with the illness, suffer with the illness. I was causing it all myself. So I got to a point where I just allowed myself to be okay with having the disease. And I allowed all the emotions to come up, and I allowed all the beliefs that I had about it to come up and to release and to move on. And with that deep surrender ended up coming my healing. Within 3 months of that day that I decided to give up the struggle against illness, I had a complete remission. You know, to the doctor's surprise, it was about 3 months, and my scan showed that the irritable bowel disease was healed, although the doctors will never say it's healed. They'll always say, you know, you have the possibility of a flare, and that's true. The possibility is there, but in my eyes, I see myself healed. And that was the last time I struggled with it, and it was really eye-opening for me to see just how much we resist, and our culture doesn't teach us to surrender to the things we like. We're taught to fight against it. But when you surrender, magic happens. Everything eases up, and when you ease up on yourself and your life, energetically, emotionally, the physical eases up too. Your reality shifts and reassembles itself in a way that is more with what you're wanting, more with your truth, with your ease, your joy, your light. So recently, as many of you might have been following me, I have had another little reoccurrence of some health issues. For about 8 months, I've been struggling with some significant hormone imbalance. Now, I'm only 36, and this hit me like a freight train, but apparently, my body wanted to go from having a normal female cycle to like menopause immediately with no easing into it. So I had such a severe drop off of hormones that my body just went into survival shock mode pretty much. And that is something that I have been looking at and working with and moving through. And I got to the point a few days ago where I realized I wasn't surrendering as deeply as I could, because some of the symptoms were like migraines and like trembling and shaking all the time, anxiety, and even some panic attacks, extreme fatigue, insomnia. So I was having a lot of these experiences where I was not in control of my body. I had the ability to, and through meditation, and I've practiced this a lot in my life, ability to kind of separate my consciousness from my body and observe what's going on, knowing it's not really me. So even when the panic attacks were happening, they were awful and terrifying, but I was able to observe them from a distance and recognize that it's actually not my thoughts. There isn't any more like emotional stuff from my current life right now that needs to be looked at or released. You know, maybe there's old energetic stuff going on, but in the big scheme of things, there was nothing to do. And so I was observing my body doing something that I had no control over. And that was very uncomfortable. I mean, it is very uncomfortable. I'm sure it would be for anybody not to have control over your bodily functions and what your body is doing. And so I've been observing this and been aware of this. And I got to the point where I was like, oh, you know what? I'm kind of pushing into it a bit. I'm leaning into it in a way that I'm resisting what's going on. And I've been getting help from the doctors, and I've been doing my meditations, and I do everything that feels intuitively good to me, and yet this is still going on, and it has been getting more extreme as the months go on. even with all the help that I've been getting. And it was the surrender that I had forgotten about. I would tiptoe a little bit into surrender and be like, no, I really don't like this. This is not okay. This is not okay. And back out of it. So the other day, it came to me, while I was in the midst of just kind of an emotional crying meltdown, because this sucks, really sucks. And with the hormones too, I'm just randomly crying and having emotional meltdowns. It's really weird. And I just had this idea that, you know what? You're not thinking of this as being temporary. You're thinking of this as like being your life. I'm very focused lately on how I'm feeling day to day and what can I do to feel better, instead of surrendering into it and being with the feelings of losing the control over my body. And I knew how to do this, but I forgot. It's been a while. Life's been pretty good for quite some time, and things come and go, and sometimes I have to remind myself, oh yeah, it is okay. It's okay that you don't like this. It's okay that you don't feel well. It's all okay. It's all temporary. And with the irritable bowel disease, I used to tell myself it was temporary until I die, because that's how I felt. I felt like I would have it for the rest of my life. So I used to tell myself, it's only temporary until I die, and then that's it, So I told myself, you know what, this has to do with my hormones and my female hormones and my cycles. So it is temporary. And the good news is it's temporary only for maybe 15 years about. It's like, oh, that's nothing. I had irritable bowel disease for 15 years and I moved through that. Was it easy? No. Did it suck? Yes, a lot. But I learned a lot about myself and I grew more into who I really came here to be. And it was just such a beautiful experience in hindsight in the end. And so I realized I'm in that place right now, again, with this hormone issues, imbalance, and it's temporary. Again, it's only temporary. And 15 years in the scheme of how infinite our beings are, not to mention just this lifetime, I maybe have, 50, 60 years maybe left, of this lifetime. But when you think of it in terms also of being an infinite being, 15 years is nothing. This is all temporary. Now, this doesn't mean I want this to go on for 15 years, but by being willing to view what's going on as temporary and being okay with it in the moment, okay with my body doing what it's doing, I ease up on it. So I did this. I eased up on it. I was like, you know what? This is okay. If I have to spend the rest of my days not being able to plan much and laying in my hammock and reading my book and listening to the birds outside, then that's okay. I'm gonna allow the universe to support me in this way. Maybe this is what I need. So throughout, these past 7-8 months here, I've been learning about surrender and surrendering more and more until I came to this moment where I was able to have a total surrender. So I'm sure you guys already know what happened when I had a total surrender, right? Because like I said, that's when the magic happens. When you completely surrender to what is in your life, everything shifts and realigns itself how you actually have been wanting. So I was laying in the backyard when I had this realization. I just completely surrendered and let go. And then I heard this little voice whispering in my ear, and it said, now, go take an extra dose of your hormones. And immediately I'm like, no, the doctor said no. She said not to go over this certain amount of hormone, and they're low dose anyway. It's not like it was gonna hurt me, but she was very adamant that I stay on this and see what happens. But then I intuitively just heard this message. It said, no, you need to now go take more of your hormones. You're extra sensitive. The doctors don't know what to do with extra sensitive people like you. So it's like, all right, well, this is my intuition. I'm gonna go with it. And so I took an extra dose of hormones. And that night I slept. And not only did I sleep through the night, I woke up at dawn with the sun rising, full of energy. I could not remember what it was like to feel this full of energy. I mean, I had been sick since I was 17. And then, issues on and off with side effects for medications and stuff, you know, since then, really. And this past year, with the hormonal disruptions, just very fatigued and tired and still pushing on. But I woke up the next morning full of energy. I opened my eyes, not a bit of grogginess, not a bit of fatigue. I had excitement. My brain was like turned on, like, oh my gosh, I am so ready to go start the day. But I'm excited to start the day. Like, oh my gosh, I have so many ideas of what I want to go do. I felt like I could go run a marathon. And I haven't been able to exercise in like, I don't know, years, really years, because I've had so much muscle weakness and other symptoms that just kept me from being able to be fully in my body and in my strength. And I came outside, you know, that morning to do my meditation with the sun rising. And I was so thankful, so thankful. And I was just sitting and being with this new sense of being grounded and settled within my body, of being grateful for my intuition. So grateful that I have an intuition, and we all have an intuition. And sometimes that intuition doesn't line up with what other people tell us to do, right? You know, the doctors do their best and they're wonderful. And at the same time, everything they give you is a suggestion. And then you have to intuitively follow what feels better to you. And, you know, in that moment, it felt better for me to take an extra dose of hormones. And now I know very clearly I was not getting enough hormone. For whatever reason, my body has not been able to kick on and balance itself out. I needed that extra hormone. So when I look back at a situation like this, and it hasn't been long, and there might be, you know, ups and downs still to come, I don't know. But I have much more of an awareness now. It's like, oh, that's right. I can surrender into it. I can surrender into what's going and just allow the universe to line it up. So logically, and I do love logic. I'm someone who loves science. I love research. I just take it with a grain of salt because I know that no matter how much research is on something, it still can't dictate how I'm going to respond to it or how it's going to show up in my life. But I love learning about all that stuff, right? So logically, as I was researching and looking back, I can see how this hormone cascade had happened, and logically how everything had played into my life into this point, and logically how it was the hormone that I took that woke me up and that made everything feel normal again. And then I go into it spiritually, because there's always a spiritual, energetic connection behind everything we're going through. And I truly believe that is first and foremost. Spiritually this year, I have changed so much with who I wanted to be, how I wanted to show up. I know who I am. I've known who I am for quite some time. And yet I was still afraid to really show up fully in the world as that vulnerable person with what I want to move forward with. And this experience, these past 7-8 months, has really stopped me, slowed me down, forced me really to be present with myself. I felt this deep desire to start bringing in more light, doing a lot more meditations, connecting in a way that was deeper to myself and to nature than I ever have before. So it gave me the opportunity to stop everything else I was doing outside of myself and to have that connection. I felt an integration going on. So I was allowed to sit and integrate with these new energies all of these months. And it all brought me to a place where I learned about surrendering, really surrendering control of my body in a way that I've never really as profoundly as I have before. Because it was always about emotions and it was always about beliefs, and now, no, it was about the physical. That was what I really had left, was surrendering to this physical body and surrendering to my presence and allowing myself to just be and follow my intuition. So spiritually, this has been a wonderful experience, and I believe I got that message to take more hormones just at the right time, because I had finally come to a place where I was like, okay, I'm fully surrendering now. And then the universe lined up, I got that message, my intuition came in and said, okay, now it's time to go in this direction. Now you've got it. Now we're moving, this way. But before, when I was still, pushing against the these feelings in my body when I was still like, I just want to feel better. I don't want to surrender to this. I really want to just make things work better. I wasn't quite ready and aligned with who I really want to be, because what I'm here to do and who I want to be moving forward is all about presence and allowing and being, just being in this experience of heart and soul in every situation. So I had to go through that. I had to allow myself to experience that to be able to move forward in the way I want to move forward. So I wanted to share that because it's just deeply moving and profound for me. I mean, it's the second time that I've had such a profound surrender, and I want to let everybody know that only good comes from surrendering. It really, truly does. Even if it feels chaotic and yucky at first and like you're giving up on life and you're just gonna spin off into oblivion or die, it's probably not gonna happen. I don't know. No, it won't happen. You'll actually take the resistance off of what is going on, and everything will ease up, and you allow the universe to start really lining things up for you, because you're no longer trying to control the experience and control what is happening and control what is going on. And you'll connect with yourself in a way that most of us desire, but really haven't been taught how to get back to that, or how to even start, or what that even looks like or feels like. So surrendering to that desire, that intention, to whatever's going on, is one of the first steps to really connecting back to your heart and your soul and your essence. So I hope you guys enjoyed that little share, and I will be seeing you next time. Bye.